pjnet.tv. 9 o'clock on the East Coast. Cameras are ready. We are recording. We are streaming on all available platforms. We have Britt standing by in the green room, and the chat room is waiting. So let's count her down to Studio 6 in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to PJNet TV. It's been an exciting week as we launched PJNet TV just Monday, and already the excitement is almost more than we can contain. But in any event, I am really pleased to bring on board, on stage for the first time here on PJNet.tv, Britt Mooney. And we don't normally allow pastors here, but Andy Clapp, of course, is one of our PJNet.tv partners and friends. So we are going to give Britt an audition to see if he could be part of the PJNet.tv team. Britt, welcome to PJNet.tv, and we're glad you're here. I've enjoyed talking to you. I hope you can do that good, outside of that, but you have a lot to say, and I'm going to try to shut up. But
that's the problem. Yeah, that's the problem.
Folks, Britt is, he is a pastor, of course. He's a husband, a father. And his website, by the way, I haven't really drilled down on it, but folks, he's got a lot of stuff there. It looks like he blogs pretty regularly, and but what fascinated me is when he told me he's a writer. The journey to become a writer, Britt, started in literally the second grade, right?
Yeah, second grade. Yeah, the quick version of that story is I was young and very energetic 8-year-old in second grade, as you can imagine, but I was also a very good reader and a very good speller. And so we would have a spelling test on Thursday. And if you got 100 on the spelling test on Thursday, then you didn't have to do the retake on Friday. And so here I would get 100 on the test on Thursday and then be sitting there with nothing to do while the rest of the class had to do the retake. So you can imagine an 8-year-old boy full of energy sitting there with nothing to do. And I got in trouble a lot in the first grade. My teacher did not like me, and my mom was called in several times. And this teacher, however, in the second grade, her name is Mrs. Green. And she looked at me one Friday and said, "Britt, why don't you write me a story?" And I thought that was the best idea I'd ever heard. And so I ended up, I wrote her a story that day. And every week I would try to get 100 on Thursday on purpose so I could write her a story. Now, none of these stories were graded. None of this was for a grade. I just enjoyed writing stories for her. And at the end of the year, she had she collected it all in a folder and gave it to me as like an end of the year kind of thing. And it's just one of those stories of a teacher that really had an impact on somebody. She did something creative. She had a creative idea. And I've been writing ever since. I fell in love with the idea of being the writer, because I love to read. So the idea that I could actually write something that someone else would want to read and like that much was just, fascinating to me as a young kid. So I've just been writing ever since.
Okay. When we were talking earlier, you're a pastor, but how are you different? Because I got the sense that you are. First of all, wait a minute. Let's not go there yet. You have a different kind of church. I mean, your church is different.
My church is very different, and I was talking with somebody about that tonight. I'm what they call a disruptor. So there are certain people in church that maintain systems, and I am kind of a disruptor. So yeah, my church is small. Our original and continuing mission is to reach out to the broken and the hurting and the addicted, and to reach out to the kind of people that a lot of churches don't actively reach out to. And we want to be a place that they can feel welcome, that they can feel empowered to change. And so it's very community oriented. The messages are very discussion oriented. I feel like Jesus wasn't afraid of questions. And so I'm not afraid of questions. I'm not afraid of having a discussion on a topic instead of just a lecture. And I believe part of discipleship is teaching people how to hear from God and express what God is telling them. I think that that's the core skill that every Christian needs to have. And so we practice that even on Sunday mornings. I'm big on discipleship, and our church meets in a brewery on Sunday mornings. We have a relationship through the coffee company with a local brewery, and they have our nitro coffee on tap there at the brewery as a non-alcoholic option. So we have a good relationship and a partnership with them. So we meet on Sunday mornings when they're not open yet, and it's just it's a cool thing. And our church has a coffee company that we started about 10 years ago to help fund some of the church planting and missions, because when you deal with people who are addicted or hurting or homeless or single moms or poor or whatever, they can give the money that they have, but it's, the poor widow only had 2 cents, right? I mean, like, even giving all they have. So we don't want to put a lot of the financial burden on our people for like stuff like missions and church planning. So we started a coffee company that could feed those resources into the church. And God has just blessed that and grown that way more than we ever thought He would. We support over 89 missionaries with the coffee right now.
Yes.
And that's just not that. And that's just from having a business. I mean, that's not that we went out and raised money and asked for donations. Although I'm not against that, but it's just, again, it's doing something different. It's being, I call it a disruptor, and that might be a negative term, but maybe an innovator. Someone who's got a creative idea and doing something a little different. Because there are a lot of churches that you can go to that do the same thing on Sunday morning, in my opinion. But we want to be a place where people can engage, can use their gift, can learn what their gift is, and can have that sort of community that encourages that. So,
well, I'm gonna be a disruptor, Britt. Two things you've said that I just feel like I need to follow up on. Number one, you said that your church is taking in some of the types of people, or the situations that people are in, that you say, quote, other churches don't reach out to. Britt, I think that is the biggest understatement in the world. I think you were just being nice. The fact of the matter is, I believe not only do we not reach out to them, I'm not so sure we want them, because, they might be a bad influence on some of our good people. And,
yeah, right.
And they might not have the best hygiene. They don't have any money. So, Britt, I applaud you. I really applaud you and your congregation for welcoming these. Jesus hung around the IRS agents and whores. Of all the worst in the dregs of society. And by the way, the tax collectors in those days they were dishonest. they would extort money from the population.
Yeah.
The other thing that caught my ear, you said you opened this coffee shop 10 years ago. Now, today it's not unusual to see some churches beginning to do coffee shops as a way to raise money and to attract people in a friendly, warm, non-threatening environment. But I don't know that there were many churches doing that 10 years ago. Did you feel like sort of a pioneer in that?
Well, actually, the way we were a pioneer is that there were churches 10 years ago doing coffee shops or doing things in coffee shops. Where God led us differently is God told our founder, Brian Holland, that the money isn't in the shop, it's in the beans. So we're actually not a coffee shop. We are a coffee roaster. So we sell beans.
You're an enterprise.
We're the roaster that sources coffee shops and restaurants, and we sell to churches. Because a lot of churches obviously, serve coffee on Sunday. And so for us, it's a great way for churches to have excellent coffee because we don't have just Folgers coffee. Like this isn't gas station coffee. Like this is top level specialty coffee. We call it wedding feast coffee. Like when Jesus made the wine, he didn't make cheap wine. And so often in Christianity, we have Christian businesses, quote unquote, and yet we think that can excuse sometimes a lack of quality. Mm-hmm. And so it's because we're supporting Christians, we'll buy it even though it's not the best, whether that be music or entertainment or any kind of business. And we think the opposite should be true. We think Christians should have an even more excellent product than anyone else.
Britt, we are commanded. We are commanded.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay.
And so we call it wedding feast coffee. So our coffee is top level. It's not cheap coffee. And so that's why some churches don't want to do it, because they don't want to put some of the money into it. But if they use our coffee, they can also say that they're involved in church planting and missions and and paying farmers 10 times more than fair trade, which means they can give their coffee pickers dignified and sustainable wages. I mean, it's God has, and again, we weren't smart enough to do this. Let me just say that like a lot of these guys were like youth pastors. Like the last person you would want to start a business, if you've ever known youth pastors, was a youth pastor, right? So this is just a testimony to God's grace and a story and a testimony to the fact that he has led us into doing things differently. And that's just a big part of who we are. We don't take credit for it. We just say, all we did was say yes to God. That's all we did. And when you say yes to God, then God gives you a story like nobody else. Like no one else has a story that you're going to have if you just say yes to him.
So do you sell pounds, a pound of coffee? Or do you only sell in?
No, we sell, bags of coffee. So on phoenixroasters.coffee is our website. We sell individual bags. We sell 2 pounds, 5 pounds, and some bulk. But we have the individual. We've got K-cups. Our K-cups are awesome. And so our K-cups are fresh coffee, because most K-cups don't have fresh coffee in them.
Really?
Because coffee gives off gas when it's roasted and ground. So they have to put old coffee in K-cups because it's sealed. So we found a company where we could put fresh coffee in a K-cup because it's got a little valve that lets that gas out. So it's like having a fresh cup of coffee every morning in your K-cup. But it's just stuff like that we've always been intentional about being excellent, and our K-cups are recyclable, right? I mean, we want to have a good testimony before the world that we are in this for good. We're not in this to be greedy. We are in this to be generous in this world and be something different.
Britt, we've got about 7 minutes. You, when we spoke earlier, you wanted to spend some time on storytelling. So I would love to. There's so much more, folks. This is good. I like, Britt, you think right. You think like I do. Okay. But anyway, Jesus told stories. Yes. And I have a lot of memories of sitting around my grandpa and my father and uncles and all the stories they tell. So storytelling is a persuasive means of influencing the culture.
Yeah, well, here's what's great about a story is you can't argue with the story.
Okay.
I'm all for theology and apologetics, and I love that stuff. I listen to Robbie Zacharias, and I love as an intellectual, that intellectual part of me. I love that, but generally speaking, you have to take a position there, and that leads to division and argument almost at the outset. But when you're telling a story invites other people into intimacy. A story means you're trying to make a friend, okay? And so for us at Phoenix, we teach people how to tell their story. And we do it really simply because God's telling a story, all right? God, from Genesis all the way to Revelation, is telling a story. And I think one of the tragedies of the Bible is not the Bible itself, but is in our organization of the Bible. It's not chronological. It's all mixed up and it's a jumble. And people have to really kind of, unless you know how to read it chronologically, it's hard to make sense of the story of the Bible sometimes. And so in the end, God is telling a story. And so it says in Revelation that they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. And they did not love their own lives unto death. And so to be an overcomer, you have to have a story that's different. You have to have a story that means something. So I'm going to use you as you're going to be my test subject. Okay, Mark?
Good. I'm
basically, this is how to tell your story in 3 words. So now all you have to remember is 3 words. All you're going to have to do is 3 words. So my story in 3 words, my first word just describes what my life was like before Jesus Christ. What was my life like before I had committed my life to Jesus Christ? And my first word is unfocused. I lived an unfocused life. I went to church and stuff, but I just didn't have any focus. I didn't know where I was going, what I was doing. There were so many options. I was unfocused. That's my story. Other people have different things. They could talk about abuse, or they could talk about feeling lost. I mean, there's all kind of religious language you could use, but that's the first word, is what your life was like before you met Jesus. So while I'm talking about this, Mark, you think about what that word would be for you. All right. The second word is what happened. What was the experience when you met Jesus? What is one word that encapsulates that experience? For me, it was commitment. For me, God's word to me was, I don't want to offend anybody, but it was basically poop or get off the pot, right? Mm-hmm. It was basically, are you in or are you out? Yeah. And I was 14 years old, and I was at a Christian rock concert, and God was like, it's time to stop playing around. It's time. Stop playing around with this thing. This is for real. This is serious. So my second word is, when I really met Jesus, it was a commitment. And my third word is purpose. So now your third word is, what is your life like now after you've met Jesus? Now that you have a relationship with Jesus, how is your life different? What's one word that encapsulates that? And for me, it's purpose. So in 3 words, I don't have to remember every detail. All I have to remember are 3 words. And now I can tell my story to anybody. I can say unfocused, commitment, purpose. And then I can make that story last 30 minutes or 3 minutes, like I just did, right? I just made that last 3 minutes. So, Mark, what would your first word be?
Well, the driven would be my first word, but let me comment. The framework is interesting because Christ says we are a new creation, a new creature. That means there was an old creature. Right. Okay, so if there's an old creature and there's a new creature, there had to therefore be a transition. So there you go. So I would say I was driven. I was a conqueror. Okay, but something happened, Britt. I finally got up against something that I couldn't beat, and it beat me. And I realized I wasn't strong. I couldn't beat everything. And in fact, I was defeated. Okay, no matter how bad you are, somebody's badder. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't deal with it. And I cried out to God. And I had everything, Britt, whatever I wanted. Mm. And I cried out to God saying, you can have all this stuff if you want it. Just fix this mess I made. Yeah. and so you know what? I don't consider that, I still think of myself as a warrior, as a conqueror, as a victor.
Right.
But now it's not about me.
Right. Yeah.
We are at war, sir. And we need to start acting like it.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like your second word would be maybe surrender.
Well,
your third word would be
defeat.
something-
I mean, I got up against something that I was just not up to. I was crushed. I was you don't want to know.
Well, but see, here's the beauty of that, Mark, is that us telling each other those stories, even though it just took 5 minutes, now we know something very crucial about each other, very intimate. There wasn't an argument about theology. There wasn't an argument about church styles. There was a, look what Jesus has done in my life.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful thing to me.
Yeah. Oh, Britt, we're out of time. I'm so sorry. I would love to talk more. Listen, it's my understanding you're going to be at the North Carolina Christian Writers Conference, and every time, you know, when I kind of let people talk as much as I can, I'm on the coffee thing, and I will have some pjnet.tv shirts.
Okay.
So I'd like you to bring some coffee. Maybe we'll make some kind of deal. Okay. Because I say, if you cannot thread the needle of a running sewing machine, you have not had enough coffee. Okay, you just
right.
Oh, Britt, I am so glad you came by to visit. This was fun. I'm sorry our time's up, but thank you. I am so encouraged by your ministry. I'm blown away. It's going to take me a while to sort of process some of this stuff, and I've only heard the little bit. Britt, you, sir, are a servant, and you are a champion. And I am glad to be your brother in Christ, and I'm glad that you got to share your story. And I hope we can do this again and again and again. Love it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. God bless, all right?
You too. Bye now. Folks, I am so sorry that we're out of time. I'm riveted to that. I hope you were too. Folks, we need people like this, okay? We need people that are out there waging war, beating them at their own game. We're out of business. So anyway, folks, JD will be here at the bottom of the hour. That's just moments away on pjnet.tv. So stand by, and Barbara will keep us rolling for a little while. And we'll be right back in just a few minutes. But before I leave, I have to ask 2 questions of you, and you don't have to answer me. Number 1, what is the boldest thing you have ever done for Jesus Christ? Number 2, how long ago was that? The challenge for myself and for all of us is to never be satisfied with either answer.